Howdy, howdy, howdy. Hey, everyone.
How's it
What's
going?
going on?
Hello. Lots of excitement out there. Slow season. Tanner's buying a new
Oh.
car. Getting it
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Pretty exciting. Coming
That it
from
is.
Arizona.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that shouldn't have any rust on it.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to be next, Ken.
I was hoping. Yeah.
I beat him to it.
You
Gotta be
beat
quicker
him
than
to
that.
it.
Yep.
Well, he's going to get the least expensive one. I saw somewhere today that they have the rear-wheel drive Model Ys, depending on what state you're in, are with all incentives can be under 30 grand.
Ooh,
I've seen that, which is
Pretty
crazy.
mind-blowing.
yeah.
So let's have Reedy tell us what's going on with him because he's likely to leave early.
That's true. um, I did four recent free quotes. I sold every one of them. Two of them were. One of them was a green speed. Two of them were 2 stages, and one of them was a single stage gas furnace. All of them, and I wish I had the numbers ready, but I don't. The green speed I did duct with it too, and that one was the biggest one. It is 32,000, so that was really good. That guy,
And that was a free quote.
That guy was, yeah,
They were all free quotes.
yeah,
Okay.
all 4 free quotes. Yeah, that guy who did the green speed and the duct, he was a Dr. Energy Saver lead that I went to in
sweet.
very early 2019. It was way back, and we did.
You guys
we
were
did.
Dr. Energy Saver?
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we're not. It was just that
not
we kept track of it, and that's how we've only dealt with him 2 times.
Okay.
That time and then this time. And what he did was he went and bought a whole bunch of windows, and that was it. He just went and bought a bunch of windows.
Not from you.
Not from us. We don't sell windows. So,
right. Okay.
Called us back. He liked, how I talked to him. That was at the end of Dr. Energy. That was probably the very last customer we ever had from them. And
so leads only cost $100 a piece, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So why didn't you guys keep doing it?
Because they were all junk. They were all junk leads.
Oh, they weren't good leads. Okay.
Yeah, and we had to travel. We had to travel an hour and a half away. I mean, so and it was a mess. They started charging us like we were really into the blown cellulose and stuff. And because we wouldn't buy truckloads of it from them, they started charging us for every bag. They charged us double the cost, even though we would buy like 400 bags at a time. Instead of being 3,600, it was like 7,200 because they wanted us to buy a truckload and we wouldn't do it. But that, and then the junky leads. But he wasn't such a junky lead because 5 years later, he bought the goods.
He sure did. He leaned in.
Yeah, he did. And he was headed towards the 2 stage, and he told me his understanding was that 2 stage were more reliable. And I said, "Who told you that?" And he said, "That's what I read on the internet." And I, showed him the likely load range. Yeah. I showed him the likely load range. He was anywhere from right at 5 tons to down 29, 30,000. And he put in a 4-ton green speed. As he said, "I'll split the difference." And so there we go. And
how big was
that?
The
Was
house?
good. Golly, that's been a week ago.
Okay. Sorry, I
I
won't
don't
ask the
remember.
hard questions. 3,500
Yeah,
square
yeah.
feet or something?
It was somewhere around there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, when it comes, not doing a blower door, so it's kind of
Right.
put it in, put it out. In my mind, I don't care that much
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. Right.
But he's we started him today. We started him today, and he's going to be out for about a week. No duct, no nothing. So we gave him some space heaters, and he said he's got a fireplace. And then the 2 stages, we did. I talked him out of the 2 stage because when we looked at his load, and he wanted to get a 4-ton, even the low was above his. It was above the low end of where it would be on the likely load.
Oh, okay.
So the green speed is the answer for that 5-stage green speed, whatever. And that's what he ended up getting. So that was good. The other two, they
And
were
he'll
2
get
stages.
reheat, dehumidification, and he'll have a much
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he wanted me, there's some duct we couldn't get to because it was buried, in between,
Walls or
interstitial spaces and all of that. And so I told him, I said, we can't do anything with this. I said, the way it was ran and the way it was sized, he had a 10-inch piece of duct going to, one was 8 by 10 and one was 15 by 10. And all the air went in the path of least resistance in the 15 by 10. So what I did is I just split it up, and now he's got air going to both places. And I said, we're just going to have to see. You didn't want to, I offered him the comfort consult. He didn't want to go that
Right.
way. And so what we did is we did the next best thing and told him, see how this works. If we have to do, other things, then we have to do other things. And he agreed. So that's good.
It's
good.
really nice having the comfort consult to offer, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because his house, we did a blower door on his house all those years ago, but I don't remember. I don't have the numbers. I mean, that's 5 years ago. And,
Right. He doesn't have them.
No, he didn't have them. And so he didn't want to spend any more money than he had to. And I said, well, you're already spending quite a bit. And there we go. So
How far away is he from you?
Oh, he's in town.
Oh, okay.
He's in our town.
Oh, that's
yeah.
nice.
As a matter of fact, he's 8 minutes from our shop. So,
Okay.
yeah, that was good. Good. The other two, they were 2 stages. They had no problems that they were concerned about. No, nothing. They picked something right in the middle. They didn't want to spend too much money on it, and they did spend quite a bit. I mean, that one was 31. Those two were both 15 and 32, and the other two were 15. And then the last one, it was 13 or something like that. It was just a little bit less. The whole key about this, and it's so amazing, is that when we can show them those frowny smiley faces, because the key theme in every one of them but the green speed guy was they went up, instead of having frowny faces, they had just the straight line
faces. Well, I don't want to have a frown face. I really like to have a smiley face, but I can't afford it. I can't justify. Okay.
Yeah, and so
that's funny.
So that's what moved him up. And the other guy, they just couldn't afford. That's all they could afford, and they did get the frowny faces. But when you can do something like
he knows
that,
what he's getting.
Yeah, he knows. And he paid more with us than he would have with the other people. That was a common thread. They told me all of that. But you know what? They felt better about the whole thing. Even though they got the frowny faces, they still felt better. So that's
right. They probably couldn't even get a like for like specification, even with your helping them with an ideal specification.
Right. I mean,
what seems to be happening is nobody can bid to a specification anymore.
Right. Well, that's because the homeowners, what they want, there's two possibilities. If you think about it, two possibilities. One is that they want you to take all the risk, and the other is
Right.
that they don't care about anybody taking risk. They just want you to put in something that's going to heat and cool. That's it. And so when we go in there and we show them, about duct pressure, and it's explained in a way that a layperson can understand it, and then we show them the 6 functions video in a way that a layperson can understand it, then the reality of it is that they say, wow, I surely don't want to get in trouble with this, and I'm glad you have shown me this, and there you go. I went to one. I did another free quote, and I forgot about this because he hasn't bought yet, but he called me today. It's a 83-year-old man, and
How old?
he is 83, and he's got a gas furnace, and it's 3.5 tons. He's got a coil on it that hangs over the sides. It's not got a transition that's proper.
Oh,
His
okay.
static pressure was 1.22. The duct pressure, the pressure drop on the duct was 0.62. And so he had, he's got stuff going on all over the place, and his system was too big. And so what he has set there, I gave him the free quote. I gave him the proposals. We talked a little about heat pump. He said, my wife's got to be warm. I'm not doing a lot of work. I'll buy what you're saying about the oversized stuff, but I got to stay with gas. Okay, great. And so here he is. I found out today because he called me today, and I talked to him, and he said he's going to make a decision tomorrow. He couldn't make one this weekend because he was at the Super Bowl. So, I mean, if you got an 83-year-old man going to the Super Bowl, I think that joker is fixing to get a 5-stage or a green speed.
Yeah. Yeah, he
So-
spent half the cost of the furnace to go to a football game.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
more.
So,
Yeah.
Maybe he's
That would-
connected to somebody.
yeah, I don't. Who can tell? I don't know. That's their choice. I'm just the guide, and sign
Yep.
here.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's a great week. I am free quotes. I'm at 75%. That's where I was at the end of last month. That's where I'm at now. Well,
Wow.
I'm a little higher now. I've sold 4 out of 5, so I'm at 80. I looked at Todd's, who's not doing the free quote, and his revenue per lead is 6,200, and
Oh,
mine
really?
is 12.
Okay.
Yeah, mine is 12K.
Yeah.
So it is okay.
Uh,
It is okay, but he could.
He's
be doing
leaving a
much
lot
better.
of money on the table, isn't he?
He sure is, and that's fine with me.
It's fine with me too.
So that is what I have to say. Let's let someone else come on.
Oh, that's awesome. Before we let you go, I talked to Ronnie today, and he mentioned he liked how the at the comfort quiz, after they're done putting in their scores, it brings up the specific video that matches that particular score. He's liking having the people look at that video. He says it makes it very easy to get the appropriate video for them. I like having them look at it. And so, do you have any thoughts on that? Because you're the Mr. Get them to watch the video guy.
I never thought about that because I just never thought about it. But I think it's a great idea because
Well-
why? It really does just what he said it does. It makes it to where it's a natural progression of steps, and it sort of takes it off of us. It lets them know, hey, we can do more if you want, without us saying it, because we've shown it to them.
Well, I think one of the things that we're leaning more and more towards is replacing the equipment first. And so long as they pick in the green, their risk of getting the equipment wrong, particularly if they get a little bit better equipment, their risk of getting the equipment wrong is pretty low.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can go to an equipment first type of an approach, and then let people decide whether they need to go further, whether they want to go further after replacing the equipment. And so even if they get a high comfort score that suggests a comfort consult, you can say to them, well, we've been having pretty good luck getting people to a place where they already have replaced their equipment and made good equipment decisions. So if you still have comfort issues later, then we can do the comfort consult.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. It really does.
Is everybody else sort of, Ken, what do you think?
I haven't been doing much, to be perfectly honest. I'm liking this retirement thing.
I know, but you think about this stuff.
Oh, yes, I do. Anything to get customers to think more deeply than, oh, well, this one's $50 less than the other one.
Right.
That's a plus, because they think that it's a simple comparison, as though you're shopping at Lowe's for an appliance.
It's a refrigerator.
Yeah. And it is simply not. We all know that.
It's so not.
Yeah. So bring it to their attention. If they choose to ignore it, that's not our fault.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I guess it'd be nice to see if there's a way to very smoothly and gently get through all three of those videos.
I volunteer.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. Thank you. So, Jason Cecil.
Yes, yes, sir.
Jason's been spending a lot of time thinking about how to smooth off the presentation of from the beginning to the end. So, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, I hadn't had a whole lot of leads, so I hadn't been able to practice too much on any of this. But, it's one of the things I've noticed is when I send out the what to expect email, most of the time they ignore it. But the few times that they respond, a lot of times it's low scores. It's like they don't have any pain. And I know that's not true in most cases, because you see a, 2-story house, kind of bonus room over garage, whatever, with one system, they got comfort issues. They just decided to live with it. And so, I've been working on, the Sandler system has the build bonding and rapport step, and the upfront contract. So I've been working on those two things, kind of tying it back to the things that I've done in the past with the warm up, and how, you don't want to sound like every other person out there, just like they talk about in the Sandler books, where, you see the selfish on the wall. Well, everybody that's come in there has talked about the selfish on the wall, so you can't do that. You got to, take a little different approach. And so one of the things that I do is, I'll look, do a little bit of research before I get there if I have time, look on LinkedIn or whatever, if they have a profile, and see if there's any common ground there and to talk about. But there was 2 questions that we used to always ask that was very telling. And the first one was, well, how long have you been thinking about replacing your HVAC equipment in this case. And if their equipment's 10 or 15 years old, or especially 15 or 20 years old, I would say, they had to have thought about it before. You can't let them off the hook if they say, well, I haven't really been thinking about it until just today, when it broke. I said, but you had to know this day was coming, and it's 15 years old, right? And so they'll start giving you a more truthful answer at that point in time. And you kind of think about what they said. So in the end, they have to think about it. You've got, with their answer, well, you've already been thinking about this for the last 5 or 6 years. So, how much more time are you going to need? But anyway, so then the second question is, what made you decide to take action today? And that's where you normally get the objections, whatever the objection is. Well, I'm not doing it today. I've got other people coming. I've got, we're in no big hurry. Whatever the objection is, it gives you some information where you can use that later on to come back to it and hit some of those things once they start wanting what you have. Once they start seeing, the value in what we're offering. So and then, when you roll into the to the next step, which is, you hear my dog squeaking his toy.
You gave your dog. I thought that was supposed to be a Valentine's Day present.
He's been staring at it, so my daughter just gave him one. So, anyway, so that's what that is. But anyway, he's 125-pound Rottweiler, so it's not like you
can't take it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't tell
him.
He'll kill the
so,
squeaker soon. It'll be
it won't last long. It was $2 toy, but anyway, so he. All right, so the next step is the upfront contract. So I've been working on that too, and I think Reedy's good about that. One of the things he'll do, and I'm sure others do. I know Ronnie does the same thing. Is ask about timing. So how are we on time? And how long do they tell you the office is going to take? And you got to give them a realistic expectation of how long this is going to, you're going to be there. I mean, if they tell you they got to leave in 30 minutes, you're going to have to tell them that we may need to reschedule because that's not going to be enough time. But, if they tell you they got an hour and a half or whatever, you just going to have to make it work. Do the best you can. And so that's one of them. The, asking them, for, giving them permission to say no. I'm asking for permission to tell them no if we're not a good fit. Is it okay for me to recommend a different company? Also you can tell me yes if you feel like you'd like to move forward. Yes, it's perfectly acceptable too, but no decisions have to be made today. That's entirely up to you. Is that fair enough? And then we start, rolling into the to the next step. He's gonna kill the squeaker before the meeting's over with. But so then the next step for me is the big idea, and the big idea is where I start talking about that there's a war on things that work, and how that things don't last as long as they used to last, and start explaining to them that if they expect this new system to last 20 years with no maintenance like they did on the last time, it's not going to work. And so then I'll start asking them the 4 questions, going over the comfort quiz, and then ask them to watch the 2 videos, asking for the commitment for the static pressure test if they want to do that or not, asking for getting them to watch the 6 functions. Then I go to the equipment, and then I start looking for those things that they're unaware about, whether it's filtration or the the filtration, or that maybe it's a circuit breaker that's too big for their existing system, start creating some urgency. I mean, the lady I saw the other day, she didn't think she had any comfort issues, and but she wanted the gas out of her house. She was scared of gas, so she wanted the heat pump.
Oh yeah,
And
you took your gas sniffer into the attic and found 5 leaks.
yeah, well, I just 9 out of 10 of the gas regulators around here are usually leaking right at the little vent hole, especially if they've been there for a few years. And so you just take that sniffer and put it right there, and it just goes off like crazy. And she was up there in the attic with me, and she was ready to call the fire department. I was like, you don't need to call the fire department. It's not that bad. I mean, you do have a carbon monoxide detector, don't you? Things like that. Yeah, things like that. And then anyway,
Yeah,
so
that's their
it creates a
attention
little
to
bit more
start to
urgency.
think for a change. Instead of just
Right, so
going
it's-
through on autopilot.
Right. So to create a little more urgency, she decided that she needed to go ahead and take care of this now instead of later, because she wasn't in a whole lot of bigger hurry beforehand until started creating a little bit of urgency that way. So anyway, that's what that was. So
you're working this whole thing end to end, and you'll probably have it all scripted out.
you won't take too much longer. Figure it out, and then we can start figuring out what I can take out to shorten it up a little bit.
Well, so one of the things that you do that I would encourage other people to think of that might be interested in using the process is first of all, a lot of the equipment's in crawl spaces or attics. So homeowners have never even seen the equipment and so you're taking pictures, and you're taking pictures inside the blower to show them that the filtration isn't keeping that blower clean. And just sort of showing them general condition issues by after you've been up there, coming and talking to them about their equipment, but not just talking to them about their equipment, but talking to them about their equipment with the pictures of their equipment. I think that's, that's really, really valuable as far as
if they have
making them
high
aware.
static too, another thing that, especially if it's some other company's lead, if they have high static, it's when I'm in there in the blower taking pictures of the dust, and it's easy to take a picture of the wiring, or how they've got the blower wired up, and then show them in the book that it's never been changed from the factory. And their company's been maintaining this and never changed anything.
Right. So the fan setting's wrong. Haven't taken static pressure readings ever. Yeah, that's good. That'll wake them up. So Ken, you've been leaning into the retirement thing?
Oh yeah. Kicking back. Although I did attend the symposium virtually.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, retirement doesn't mean I'm not interested in HVAC anymore. It's still my passion. I kept the home performance test equipment. I still have my HVAC equipment that I need, and my van.
Okay.
So I've been doing some follow-up and consulting for my business, which is now my son's business.
So they call you in do they sell comfort consults for you?
No. One of the girls who was they don't fully embrace it.
Okay.
One of the girls who was our CSM liked the idea a lot, and in fact, I gave her a copy of Nate's book
Good.
when I'd placed an order for some of them. She saw I'd opened the box. I asked her if she'd like one. She said, "Oh, I was hoping you'd ask me that." But she's gone on to something else. She wanted to do some physical therapy training, so that's what she's doing.
Okay.
They at the office, they have occasionally mentioned it, but they, as I said, they don't embrace it. They don't fully realize what it is. It's just when somebody calls and it's not a problem directly related to their equipment. They've got comfort issues, but they can't identify an aspect of their HVAC system that is the problem. So they'll make a reference to that.
Daddy.
How big is your son's company? Or your company?
2 technicians. I think it's now 6 installers. And then my son, his wife, and an office person. Oh, and one of their sons, hence my grandson, as a salesman.
Okay, so medium
we can't-
size, small
can't
to
get-
medium.
We can't get your grandson
I
free quote process.
I talked to him about it. He's probably the most open-minded about it.
How's he compensated?
I don't honestly know. He's probably salary.
Okay.
Uh,
No incentive based on sales productivity.
Well, since it was my son and I who did sales anyway, we were simply salary with quarterly or biannual bonuses, depending on the profitability of the company. Since we
Okay.
were the owners,
Okay,
we were
right.
partners in the company. I haven't really asked. Now, our grandson did watch some of the ACA videos when Ed Janowak had some of them online a few months ago. And he is beginning to have a glimmer of understanding of static pressure, duct design. Although when I say a glimmer of those things, they do fairly well with their current method of design and sizing. So they haven't had a lot of
Headaches, no callbacks.
blowback, on a bad thing.
Okay.
Uh,
So we just have to wait until something blows up in their face and then offer it.
yep.
Or going on sales calls for that other people's installed equipment poorly.
I
mean,
have
it doesn't have.
Yeah, I have offered, but my son and I went back and forth so much on downsizing, and my son is just not ready to do that.
Right.
I've had to go when I've gone back for service on some of the systems that he's sold. It's like, oh my good grief. I look at the static pressure. I find the furnace cycling on the limit, and I just it's a little late to do anything about it then.
Yeah, right.
And knowing that I was going to be retiring, rather than make an issue of it, I just said,
Look, like
go
you
ahead.
want to live to 100, not to 72.
Yeah, yep.
So your grandson, is he strictly sales, no tech?
No, he was an installer for a time, and I'm trying to recall, there was some discussion about having him ride along with me before I retired on some of my repairs, but it just never came to be.
Okay.
Right.
Well, Jason Trammell, why don't you bring us up to date? What's going on with you? Did you ever finish out that one free quote?
No, I actually thought about it today. I almost sent him an email to see what the heck.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I think they're just trying to ride it out till spring at this point.
Equipment's working.
It's working, so I probably shouldn't have fixed it, but I mean, it is what it is. So I'm not too worried about it. I've been working on a few other jobs and doing some no heat calls, service work.
They'll call you when they need air conditioning, right?
Yeah, I mean, but the air conditioning works too. So,
Oh,
but they were already prepared to replace it in the spring,
right.
but they didn't realize that they're going to have to spend several $1,000s to keep the furnace running through the winter at that time. So,
Right. It was the furnace that wasn't working. You got the furnace working on heat pump.
no, it's working on furnace.
It's
I got
working
the
on
furnace
furnace.
working. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just straight.
Oh,
as
you found an
different
inducer motor that somebody
Right.
had in their
Right.
stockpile.
right
Right.
in their junkyard. Yeah. So,
My memory is terrible anymore.
yeah, the older I get, the worse mine is. I used to have a really good photographic memory. I couldn't remember names very good, but like I could remember a lot of stuff, and it's gotten a lot worse over the years.
Equipment stuff or houses or
Yeah, or anything.
I was when I was doing it, I remembered the square footage and the energy use and the
Yeah.
blower door number.
Yeah, like
like
I can remember
100 houses.
numbers and stuff like that. I can remember, like I know my friends' telephone numbers from 30 years ago growing up, but
Wow.
faces like and names with faces is I have a difficult time with that. But I've been working on building some duct work and service calls, just normal and
A
email.
fair amount of commercial work, right?
Yeah, we do a fair amount of probably 40. I would guess over time 40% commercial, 60 residential, but usually like commercial. We use it. I don't know. We use it to fill in our slow times, I would say, but like in the peak season, we're primarily residential because that's where a lot of money is. But then in off season, we can make a lot more than that doing commercial work too. So
Gotcha. All right, Tanner, why don't you tell us what's going on in your world besides the excitement of the car coming tomorrow?
Yeah. Not a whole lot of new news or nothing exciting anyways. I've got a few things that's just kind of pending. Which one thing that I have been doing is it's more car related, but it's sales oriented. That when you kind of do this type of thing and you delve into sales, especially with Sandler, you delve into that. It is kind of fun to play the reverse role on occasion, to like kind of watch people of how they go through their sales process and how they're doing it to you. And you can really pick up of like bad habits that salesmen will do that is just complete turnoffs. And if you're in the market for a car, like is there any
And you're gonna
worse
drive
area?
to Ohio.
Yeah. And it's just really bad. But I will say the person that the one I bought from, which for one, he actually knew what he was talking about, which is, a big plus. The rest of the people, they were just completely, they were airheaded morons. Like there's no other way to put it. Like these people, I was having to talk them through how to like go through the car to get the information that I needed them to give me. Like it was bad. But
so anybody who's watching this at some point in the future, Tanner really, after his Florida trip, he really wanted a car with full self-driving. And
yes.
so he sort of combed around the country trying to find the specific black on black performance full self-driving Model Y.
Yes.
Year 2022 or newer.
with
so
the
they
AR
would be CCS compatible.
with the AR-15 holster in the back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
well,
the great
he's gonna
that's the
add
great
that.
thing. That's the great thing. The front trunk, it fits my honey badger just so perfectly. So I can just throw the honey badger down, throw my bag on top of it for my go bag. It
There
fits
you
great.
go.
I knew it was a done deal whenever I rented that Model 3 and I just sit it right in there and it fit perfectly. I'm like, yep, got to get one of these.
So,
But which I will say, one question that the salesman who I bought from, he asked a good question. It's not super pertainable to HVAC because we don't really negotiate price, but I think the how he framed the question and how he used the question, I think you might kind of break it down, look at the principles and apply it at other places. But we were negotiating price, he was at one number and I was already at another number. We had a pretty big differential between us, and he kind of hits me with this, well, it sounds like we've got a pretty wide margin, and I would hate to lose this deal over just a little bit of money. So could you give me a price that I just couldn't turn down? And he just left it there. I thought it was a good question because it was, normally people will just say, hey, like, what's the most you can give? Or what's the best price you can do? Like something along those lines. And he framed it in you give me a deal that I just can't turn down. And I thought it was an interesting, like, change of dynamic from asking that type of question. I don't know if it's just I was dealing with so many stupid salesmen that just something a little bit different was, good. But, you get into the price negotiations with, car salesmen, it's always they're going to start out high, and then or if they don't ask you for a price, they're going to come down a little bit, and they're going to make it seem like that they just did you the biggest favor ever. Oh,
Right.
I talked to my boss, it took me 5 minutes, but I convinced him, and we got it down $500. So if you can sign right here, but he said, I've got 30 minutes to do this. If you don't sign right now, like, that was the type of nonsense. And so
So the
this
other
guy
funny
was,
part of this story is, where was it that you drove up to?
I drove to Nashville, a little bit south of Nashville. So
So-
it was almost 3 hours.
Tanner drove 3 hours to get this car,
Hmm.
and he gets there, and it's supposed to have advanced autopilot.
Yeah. Enhanced autopilot.
Enhanced autopilot. He gets there, and it doesn't have enhanced autopilot. And at this point, he's like willing to pay their advertised price, but it's their advertised price for the car with the advertised features, and the car doesn't have this $6,000 feature. And then they act like they're doing him a favor by dropping their price
Yeah.
$4,000. It's like,
Yeah.
you guys, what part of math don't you understand?
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, there wasn't a whole lot of understanding that was going on at that place because, at first they're like, I mean, the guy, when he went out to get in the car, first of all, it took him a second to figure out how to get inside the car. And then he got inside the car, and it took him 5 minutes of fidgeting around and finally calling somebody saying, hey, tell me how to make this car move. And then they get it up to the place. And so they're like, it's so clear that they know nothing about this car they're trying to sell. And then when it comes to the negotiating side, then it was they magically turned into experts as to knowing what the market value for these cars are. And it's like, I mean, like, I even had to, I mean, I didn't like doing it because I know it's annoying to a salesman to, like, bring up other prices in front of them, but they're like, I can find this exact car for way cheaper, like right now. And they're like, well, that's just not what we're seeing. So I pull open my phone and I'm like, start looking and go, okay, we know you can we know you can get it somewhere else. And so it was just this, I guess the takeaway
all
from
the
it.
way up here, you advertise this car for this price, and now you're not going to sell it to me for this price.
Yes.
That is, I mean, explain to me how that's just not slimy and unethical.
Yeah.
You made a mistake, I guess, whatever,
Yeah.
but that's
And-
your mistake, not
yeah.
mine. I came here in good faith, and
Yeah.
I've been behaving in good faith this whole time.
Yeah. And in hindsight, looking at that exchange, one thing that I noticed that after kind of thinking about it again is it kind of plays into the whole dummy curve of that these people clearly knew nothing about the car, but I was more willing to buy when they knew nothing versus when they were trying to pretend like they knew more than what they did. So it
Right.
kind of really demonstrated that dummy curve of if they had stayed dumb the whole time, I don't know, maybe I'd have moved.
Oh,
I mean, I'm
that's
glad I didn't,
interesting.
but I was more willing to deal with someone saying,
You
I
would have
don't
been
know
more
anything about this.
sympathetic to them.
Yes.
Had they had they acknowledged their ignorance instead of pretending to know a thing that they didn't know.
Yes. Well, at first they didn't. They were forthcoming with, hey, I don't know anything about this. And
Right.
of course it's like, well, if you're selling something, like, you should know what you're selling. But at the same time, there was this level of sympathy. Like, even with me being, like, hyper honed in to this, like, I know what this salesman's doing. Like when he's offering me water and he's offering these things to try to condition me to say yes. Like I know what's happening. I see the little tactics, but even then, I was looking over the little hint of sympathy that you give somebody when they're just willing to say, I don't know. And so I was good then, but then as soon as they kind of flipped that and they started going like they were an expert again, that's when
they're used car salesmen.
Yes. And so to me, the takeaway from it on that exchange was just that, hey, like, you know, Columbo works great. Like if you're okay with seeming like you're just, you know, that you're not just a top of the line expert on every little thing, that you can utilize that. Like you don't have to know every single answer. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's just, you have to be genuine with it. And then as soon as you leave, as soon as you leave that place of being genuine, that's when things fall off. Cause that's where I fell off. I mean, that's why
you lost interest, got back in the car and left.
Yes. Oh, I was throwing them like low ball offers. I'm like, I could do like, oh, we're at 44 and the best you can do is 42. I'm like 32. Is that a problem? Like that's where I was at, just because of how annoyed I was with, the stupidity that I knew that was glaringly there. Oh, you don't know anything about this car, but you're trying to tell me as if you do. I had to go prove to you that the car didn't have a feature that you said it had. And that's the thing, like even at the point of like proving the car didn't have what it had,
there was no taking ownership of the fact that they
yeah. And so again, like from that sales perspective, it's like, had they have stayed in that Columbo compartment, which even though there was not really a questions based process, it was a very pushy, typical car salesman type thing. But even in the little level of Columbo that they were unaware that they were in, that was far more effective than their normal. And so to me, it just really highlighted that dummy curve, the powerfulness of Columbo. And then in dealing with the other salesman who was he was a lot more questions based and getting more questions and, using reassuring statements and things like that. There was just a glaring difference in that. I mean, I guess it just left me going, I mean, I'm glad I'm using the Sandler process and not some, bullshit traditional sales process. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and in the end, you got a car with $12,000 feature instead of 6.
Yes.
And half the miles.
Yep. Half the miles, really in better condition. I mean, just everything was upgraded and the price was just negligible.
Right.
Increase. I mean, I paid a few thousand for a $12,000 feature and half miles. So definitely worked out.
Can't wait. Hopefully you're going to be posting lots of pictures tomorrow.
That's the plan.
All right. You taking the day off?
Yes. I'm gonna be sitting there waiting, being like, awesome. Unload this bitch so I can get going.
So Tanner, you own your own company as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just me with a few part-time people. I mean, it's really small. Can't even really call it a company, really.
Right.
Under $500,000 last year.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but it was also a part-time business as well. So this year's different.
Oh, so you're full-time now?
Yes.
Just start leaning in.
Yes.
Cool.
So it's time to go big or go home.
Yep. I guess.
Yeah.
Or stay where you're at and be happy.
Or that, but see, I'm just dumb enough to not want that. So
he's got a lot of time to chase his ambition.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if things go sideways, I'll just Airbnb my house and I'll just live in the car.
Hey, car camping in that car is amazing, by the way.
I bet so.
Lizzie and I did a 13-day trip down to Texas and then across the Gulf Coast. And we spent 11 of 13 nights in the car.
That was the time you went down to Johnny's.
Went and saw Johnny, yeah. And Well, it was during COVID too, so she
Yeah.
didn't really. Hey, you want to do a hotel? No. How about tonight? No. How about now? Car's so comfortable. Why would we want to do all that? Got to take all our stuff into the hotel room and take it all. She was
Mhm.
very funny. She was very funny. We had a great time. That was fun. So, well, guys, everybody's got their dog except for me and Tanner.
Yeah. We're gonna have to buy dogs.
God, miss my
Mine
dog.
finally wore himself out. Squeaking.
Yeah, right. It's quiet at Jason's.
He's probably ripping up that squeaker now.
Mhm.
Probably already
He
ripped
done-
out.
Oh,
he got it.
Nope, nope,
Nope, there it
nope.
goes.
Spoke too soon.
So was there anything else or any suggestions or any challenges people are having with the software? Anything to bring to the attention of
Do you have
Eric
any?
Beloy?
Do you have any insight on when they may have that update fixed and pushed out?
I
No.
don't.
Eric said it's one of those things where finding out what happened is going to take the time. The actual fix will probably be very quick. So
Right.
he was hoping sometime this week, but I mean, I don't know anything about programming, but I do know that it's never as straightforward and simple as it seems it is.
Well,
So
all it takes is one little
yeah,
character out of place in the thing, and it's all screwed up.
yeah. So,
And just looking at all that programming to figure out which piece is out of place is
mhm.
Well, and getting that
not
report,
what I want to do.
the drag and drop, getting that drag and drop sorted, I think is going to make it significantly easier
Yes.
to build free quotes.
Yeah, because I
Um,
have like with the current one, like if you don't put a certain number in the money column, then it makes one thing. You know what I'm talking about. It makes one thing lower than the other, even though it shouldn't be in that order. So drag and drop
Yeah.
should be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think likely load range automated would be really cool feature too. But
Yeah.
I don't know what all that takes to make that work.
Well, so we're going to have an interim step, which Jason Cecil, you used it, right? While it was live for a minute.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I did. It worked pretty seamlessly. The likely load. It was
With
good.
the spreadsheet,
Yeah.
using the spreadsheet.
Well, I think there's a connection to it somehow.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's going to link to the spreadsheet so you can go get the numbers you need to get. Then you come back, punch them in, and you know, do it that way. Which, I mean, once that is done, and it's populating the colors and stuff, I think that's going to be a huge tool. Like that is likely to be the focal point of of it, because it can essentially replace doing a load calc where you're spending a lot of time and you're getting a guesstimate at the end of the
Right.
day. So,
Yeah.
and which, I mean, if someone's not comfortable with a spreadsheet, like if you're good with Cool Calc, I mean, you can do a very fast block load on a house and just go worst case scenario, best case scenario, and there's your range there. So there's multiple ways of doing that. But
Yeah, I think a lot of people that are just sales probably don't have that.
They can't do. I mean, they can't do it as quick as we could. And even
Well,
if they could do it, then they
this
probably
is going to
wouldn't do
take
it
all
very
that
good.
trouble away, right?
yeah.
So like I can do a load calc and a block load in 10 minutes, on a standard ranch or something. But like a salesperson that has no experience in HVAC, they can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can look at a house and say this year it was built around this era. I know it's whatever, R19 in the ceiling, R15 in the walls, R13 in the floor, brick with sheathing, and I mean, I just know because I've done it enough. But they don't know any of that. They have to go poking around and figure stuff out. So.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing, I'm talking to Ronnie today. I thought he hopefully was going to make it, but what we're doing in Comfort Consult right now is they're, doing the 2 loads. I think eventually you'll only do the current load and then use likely load range in a Comfort Consult. What do you guys think about that?
A likely load range in the Comfort Consult?
Yeah. So when you're doing the Comfort Consult, instead of sort of doing a target for the house, doing what the house is, and then doing what you think you might be able to get the house to.
Okay, so like a more refined and detailed load range.
Yeah.
Of-
So you're going to give it a load calc. So instead of having a likely load range for the house, you'll have the load calc, and then you show where that load calc is within the load range. And then you can tell people, look, you're in the yellow, but let's take it to the green as part of the Comfort Consult.
I like that.
I do too, because I mean, you can only guess at the improvements.
This way you're not taking any responsibility for the improvements.
Yeah.
Because I putting the pressure of, okay, so what's the leakage target you guys think you might want to recommend as part of a Comfort Consult? It just feels like, unless you're doing a comprehensive planning process and really digging into what's going on with the house, that's sort of asking a lot of Kreskin stuff.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of switching the load or the range of it being the improvements rather than the load. It's like now we know what the load is. It's just if we were to make changes, here's the range of
Where you might
improvement
end up.
changes of where you could end up. And so
Yeah.
how does that lay out with where our load is at currently versus where the load, or what your equipment size currently is. So yeah, I like that idea. Plus it would, if they went through the free quote process already, they're already going to be familiar with that. So then when it gets here, it's like, okay, well, same concept, but it's just now some of these details are more exact. So we know what size you need, the way the house currently sits. And then we can go, here's the range of what improvements could happen or couldn't happen. It's just, here's where we're just moving the uncertainty, down the road at each step.
We're tightening up the uncertainty.
Yes.
Less
I like that.
risk for them.
Less risk for them, less risk for us.
Yeah.
More clarity. And I think eventually it could mean that the narrative around the Comfort Consult just ends up being a more comprehensive free quote. So it could follow along that whole same path.
Yeah.
Only
it would be like the extension of the free quote. It's like, here's the section that you have to pay for.
Here's the section you pay for.
Yeah. Just like Nate's free chapters or whatever, or you can buy the whole book.
Or buy the whole book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Ken?
Anything's a step forward.
We need to get Ken some consulting. We need to get him over there and get those guys in Cincy to call him.
Don't make me get up before 8:30 though.
How did your trip to see your dad go?
Actually, that one didn't go. The night before I was supposed to go, my sister-in-law called and said they've got COVID.
Oh.
So that didn't happen. I had to call the next morning and cancel the appointment with the doctor.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And mom couldn't even remember. Mom, a nurse, retired, long since retired, but couldn't even remember the name of the disease that they told her they had. So I'm afraid mom's starting to get a little foggy. But if I last until
I don't know. Those
She's
diseases are
got-
hard to remember.
She's got to be like 140.
She's 96. Yeah.
And they got some crazy disease names. If you don't write that shit down, how are you going to remember?
Well, it's not one that she knew of when she practiced.
There you go.
Yeah.
One of them woke woke diseases like COVID.
So what about
Well,
right? So
canceled.
what about your next? Where's your next Airbnb? Or
Next year. Well, probably spring. We'll go down to one of Nate's places.
yeah.
We're going later. I have to look at my calendar to see when. Back to Lake Lure, outside of Asheville, North Carolina. That's just such a pretty area,
Yeah, it is.
and it's convenient to Asheville. It's an hour drive, but it's easily handled.
Where are you at, Ken?
Southeast Ohio.
Oh, okay. And it's an hour drive from
No.
Asheville?
From Lake Lure into Asheville.
Oh, gotcha.
Sorry, I may have
And what
skipped.
takes you into Asheville?
Because I'm like an hour and a half from Asheville.
Oh, Asheville
I'm
has
not
great
close to Ohio.
restaurants. Yeah. Oh, if that was the case. Yeah, Asheville has great restaurants. Just a really cool city if you haven't been there. They have a place that makes vinyl records.
Still, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hippie, laid back sort of
Yes.
area.
And then you can go down to the Biltmore Village.
Yep.
I've been to the Biltmore when I was a little kid. My grandparents had a summer or winter. They wintered in Tryon.
I don't know that place.
Triad.
No, Tryon,
Tryon.
North Carolina.
I'm not familiar, but I'm sure it's near there. But
It's a
Yeah,
tiny little horse country kind of place.
right, Asheville's it's a nice area. It really is.
Yep.
It was one of my favorite places to go growing up,
Oh.
and in my younger years when I used to get in the truck and drive up the mountain just to go hang out.
Would that have anything to do with there being over 20 craft breweries there?
Possibly.
Nice.
Landrum. Have you heard of Landrum?
South Carolina?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So Tryon's right next to Landrum.
Okay.
Okay.
That's close to me.
Well, guys, I'm going to hit stop because I think we've made our hour, haven't we?
I believe so.
Yep.
I'm seeing that.
Or Tanner, you go ahead and
Did
hit
it-
stop.
Did anybody comment? Were there any comments in the YouTube chat?
I don't think
Nope.
so.
None.
Nope. Well, I guess we'll sign out then.
No.
See you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
See you guys.
Y'all have a good one.
Thanks for watching.